Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host Pez, I'm here with Sauce, and you're here for our Futures Part 2 AFL 2023.
That's correct, Pez. Last week we locked in some locks, we had some leans, we left a couple, and I'm really excited to get into Part 2. But first we probably need to get into our loser comp. Pez, only 7 days. This time next week we'll be watching Carlton versus Richmond in round 1.
Oh, and the email will go out where everyone's picks will be there, and you'll be able to see, hey, have a look at what everyone's picked, and then you start barracking for different teams based on that, because the grand prize last year, as we know, was $1,100, and we want to try and make it bigger and better. So we know everyone, all AFL fans, last minute thing. So join in, 7 days to go. Make sure you don't miss out on this one.
Yeah, everything will be going off next week, Pez. I'll be quickly typing away for those last-minute entries, those people who are getting those tips in last minute, trying to make sure that they get every single little bit of edge that they can. The Facebook Messenger group will be absolutely popping off, and hopefully I'll be able to sit down with a VB, the very best, and enjoy footy and soak it up.
So Thursday night start, is it? Thursday night. So we've got a week to go. We've got a big night ahead of us here. And if you haven't already, jump onto our socials. So Twitter at Behind the Bound. We've just made a TikTok source at Behind the Bound as well. So make sure you jump on there. You'll see us in action on the video. Instagram at Behind the Bound and Facebook Behind the Boundary Podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple. You probably already are.
I feel very daggy now that I'm on TikTok. Do I have to work out all these little TikTok dances and stuff that all the millennials are doing?
Look, we know we're struggling if we start doing these little TikTok dances.
One of these ones.
It's our mugs on there. But actually, if you're not on TikTok and you're against TikTok, like you're saying, that some people, that's a little bit for kids, it actually is pretty good for AFL content. So I've been, scrolling through and just having a look at a couple of AFL things, and you just watch a couple of videos. Behind the boundary ones are the best, but we keep going from there.
All right, I'll put this out to the punters and so they can get an exclusive. Over under, I reckon about 10.5. Pez's personal little dances that he's got on his TikTok account. I'd be going pumping the over. I've seen this guy's moves and he rates himself very highly.
Well, half time of the footy, what else are you going to do? You got 20 minutes? It's the perfect time.
Oh, I mean, as a St Kilda fan, in the first quarter, you've got not much to be doing, so you'll be dancing along there as well.
Well, we will speak about them tonight in our over-under segment, won't we?
Hawkins got a little under him. Out the back, Dangerfield got Kelly over the top. Runs into the open goal. You've got to be kidding, because there's no doubt. All of the ball over the line.
Here we go, part 2 for the over-under season wins. We last week covered Adelaide to Hawthorn, and this time we'll cover Melbourne into the end. Starting things off with Melbourne, 16 wins last year, 6 losses, a percentage of 130.5. Finished the season in second, but of course they went out in straight sets. The over-under for Melbourne this season is 14.5, $1.91 for the over, $1.82 for the under.
Yeah, this one's a massive lean for me. I do like the Melbourne Footy Club and what they've done with Grundy, the acquisition of Grundy in the preseason. They put them together in the practice match on the weekend. They kicked 3 goals each.
They're not going to do that every week, though.
Of course they're not, but Melbourne fans have a reason to get excited. They've they lost Luke Jackson over to Fremantle that we spoke about last week, but Grundy comes in, and we thought he should have been playing in Collingwood's side at the end of last season. He wasn't. And Melbourne are set, ready to go. The same line as the Brisbane Lions, so 14.5. They were probably a little bit disappointing, and I think Melbourne are going to, really focus to beat up on some of these smaller teams, which is why I'm leaning towards the over 14.5. I think they're a really good shot for top 4, but there's no lock in there for me at the moment for the Melbourne Footy Club.
I'm very similar, Pez. I was very close to locking this one. You mentioned the acquisition of Grundy and that 1-2 punch in the ruck of them and Gawn. I guess we're going to be calling them Gawn. We can combine the two names. Are we going to call them Grundy? Combine the two names, or
no? You
Gaundy?
whatever you want.
Gaundy.
you can make up something and make it fail.
But make it fail. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do anyway. But they've got a 1-2 punch all around the ground. You look at their midfield. You've got Petrarca and you've got my mate Clayton Oliver, the redhead. You look coming off the back line. You've got Lockie Hunter now with that nice little quiet acquisition, and Ed Langdon. They're pumped all around the ground. Their defence got stronger. The only problem is questions last year that we had is, are they going to score? And last year they were able to score. So we know their defence is going to get tighter. We're still going to have those questions, who's going to kick those goals, but Grundy being able to go up there and rest up forward, he'll probably take 2 or 3 marks a game. And then you've got Gawn down there. Whether he can kick straight's another story. He's going to get the old Matthew Pavlich, the old Sanderland. No one's going to be able to outmark him. If they are, it's going to be a chopping of the arms. I really like this one, Pez, and I'm going to lean towards the over because I think it's a really big shot, but I'm expecting a bounce back year from Melbourne. They were really disappointing in the finals, expecting big things from Melbourne in 2023.
Yeah, and very good. It is hard, isn't it, for a future to lock your money away for a year, which someone said in the comments there, I'm not waiting a whole year for my money back. So there you go. Yeah,
but you are correct. It is a long... But would you rather lose $20 in round 1? Would you rather guarantee, or not guarantee, but have a better shot of walking away with 80? And that's what you got to weigh up, whether it's risk versus reward. And if you believe in the bet and you believe in the metrics and the stats and all that other rubbish, well, then why wouldn't you try and up your money?
You've got to make sure it's an absolute lock, because if you're just leaning towards something, you don't just want to put your money out there for naysay because it's sitting there all year for the futures market. But if you think something is really a genuine chance to happen, you might as well try and make some profit, because any profit is good profit.
And Melbourne, I think, as I said, I think it's one of those ones that it's super close to a lean. Like it's 95% a lean. And I might actually wait until like round 2 or 3 to lock that in. And I'll lose a little bit of money, and I'll probably, the wins will probably be about the same. But their first couple of weeks is tough. They have the Doggies first up, and then they have Brisbane. So they may split those. They may go 0-2, and then to lock them in for the over, you get a little bit better price because their fixture is very favourable. The teams that they play twice, Pairs, they play Brisbane and Carlton twice, which top 4 teams. But they play Hawthorn twice, North Melbourne twice. So there's 4 wins automatically.
There's 4. You only need 11 more, and they're going to be playing against some other bottom type sides like GWS. You've got some other ones we spoke about last week. So Melbourne, if you like them, 14.5. The bookies probably have it right there at 14.5, because if it was 13.5, it'd probably be a lock.
It probably would be. All right, speaking about locks and speaking about teams down the bottom, your favourite team to talk about, Pez, North Melbourne. The F is for failure, because last year probably wasn't a failure. They probably overperformed for what their list does with 2 wins last year and 20 losses. They went on a 16-game losing streak before they beat Richmond in a cracker of a game, and in an underperforming Richmond. They had a percentage of 55.8%. North Melbourne, the bookies have season wins at plus 6.5 for the over, and obviously 6.5 for the under. $1.94 for the over, $1.80 for the under. Pez, I hear a lot of people saying, well, where are North Melbourne going to find 5 more wins from next year? With Alistair Clarkson coming across, he maybe has kept those in his back pocket, or he's bringing across 5 automatic wins, but I don't see where we're getting the extra 5 wins from just on their list. Their list didn't get better. Their coaching staff possibly got better, but they had a lot of interruptions in that off-season.
Yeah, they've made a lot of mistakes in the last 5 years. For a club at the bottom and a club actually getting top draft picks, we know the story around Jason Horne-Francis. He's been traded to Port Adelaide. He's been probably mucking up a little bit, and people are talking about him in the media over there already as well. They brought in players like Tom Lynch, who didn't have an impact. He retired. Josh Walker, they brought him in to prolong his career. Didn't work out. Jared Polek, that they brought over, he didn't work out as well as Pittard the year before. So there's lots of delistings and there's lots of turnover on a young list, which they don't need to do, because they're actually trying to top up to try and get into that mid-table, and it just hasn't happened. They've got Griffin Logan from Fremantle. I guess he just wants another, maybe a regular forward gig. and maybe you can throw him down in the forward line there. You've got Darcy Tucker also coming from Fremantle, and Liam Shields coming across with his old mate Clarko. So to add a little bit of toughness, maybe to show the younger players how to train like an elite premiership sort of team, sort of club. So Clarko's done a lot in the media so far, trying to save face after the controversy last year. There's been some controversy already this year, and North at the moment, I can't trust anything with Clarko. People that listen to the show regularly, they would think I'm jumping all over the under. I'm not locking. I'm not even leaning any direction at the moment, Sauce. I'm just going to leave this one alone. Let the North fans breathe and see how they go at the start of the year.
Oh, I was waiting for some sort of like a little bit of a late hit or a little bit of shade thrown towards them, but well restrained there, Pez. So good job for you. I like what North did in actually leaning into the rebuild. They saw that they were going to lose Jason Horne-Francis, so they traded him away, and they got 2 picks in the top 10. So they're on the same age bracket. Harry Sheasel, he was impressive on the weekend at pick 3, and Braden George at pick 26 as well as George. Oh Jesus, Wardlaw, right? And
names are your strong suit.
Names are my strong suit, but numbers are where it's at, Pez. And I'm going to be leaving this one as well. If I was looking to throw a bet down, I reckon actually a bet that you could lock in early at the moment, a week out, is North Melbourne for round 1, $1.82. They're going to be reading up all the hype with Alistair Clarkson. They're going to be pumped up. They play West Coast in round 1, and it's very unlucky. You are going to see, for the first time in a long time, North Melbourne going into round 1 expecting to win. They're going to be pumped up by the fans. It's going to be cracking.
Favorites.
They're going to go. They are favourites at the moment, $1.82, and that is really good value. That will come in. That definitely will come in, because when people start to see West Coast team name, that'll start to come in probably $1.50, but it is great value at the moment at $1.82. So if we're looking for a bet, that's one. I'm leaving the season wins, but looking ahead to round 1.
Yeah.
Good chat. All right, let's get on to that. You're done talking with North Melbourne.
We can't give them any more light, you know that.
All right, speaking at light at the end of the tunnel, we talk of Port Adelaide last year. They had a very disappointing year from the year before. They had 10 wins, 12 losses, 110%. They finished on 11th. And the season wins total for next year, the bookies have it about the same. They have them performing at 12.5 Pez, $1.87 for the over, the under 12.5, $1.87. Will this be a bounce back and a return to finals for Port Adelaide?
With Port Adelaide, you're kind of getting sick of the narrative, sick of the Ken Hinkley narrative. He's been there for a long time. He hasn't been able to, take that next step with their players. His players have let him down some seasons. I guess his coaching has let them down in some seasons as well. They've got some strong areas of the ground, and they've got some, decent young players like Todd Marshall up forward. But when you look across their 23 and their strongest 23, you're just not that impressed. And losing a player like Carl Amon, who's running off the wing, gathering 15 to 20 touches a game, putting the ball inside 50, you just don't want that to happen. Robbie Gray was an absolute star, even though he was at the older end of his career. And Stephen Motlop, when he played, didn't he turn it on and always kick a couple of goals? So I think they've lost some really big talent. Jason Horne-Francis comes in as a big, number 1 draft pick, but I don't think he's going to have that impact that he needs to have straight away. What did you say the line was for the season wins here? The
season wins for this one, of course you did it to me. I just tried to be prepared for the next one, and I moved across, so you've really thrown me off there. I think it was 12.5, so yes, correct, 12.5 wins.
Yeah, see, 12.5. I would lean the under, because I think they're going to drop a little bit more than they would otherwise. I just can't see them gelling together with a couple of losses and still the same old message at the top. We always speak about the Interstate Club Sauce, and they've got all these games at home, and I'm sure you've delved into their fixture and see who they play twice. So I am interested to hear that. I'm just leaving this one alone at the moment.
Yeah, the third toughest fixture by my metrics. They play Adelaide twice, which we know whilst they're at the bottom, it's a showdown. So you don't actually get that showdown. They get Collingwood twice, Essendon twice, Geelong twice, Richmond twice, and the Doggies twice.
Only one club there you want twice.
Exactly right. And Essendon is that club. And, for other teams, Adelaide would be that club, but not in a showdown. We know that they upset them last year early on. And it has been that narrative, Pez. And I would expect this year, Port Adelaide to have a range of different runs. They'll probably go on and probably lose the first 3 or 4, and then they'll go on a 5-game winning streak. And that's about where they are. The bookies have this bang on. Leave this one. Do not invest any money in it. There's not even any value outside of it. Just stay away from the Port Adelaide season win total, Pez.
Yeah, you think it can go either way, and you think it's just up in the air at the moment.
I think the bookies have it bang on. Like it's right on. Like their fixture isn't favourable. The gather round, they play the Doggies there in Adelaide, so like it's they get an extra game at home, but 2 of those games are going to be against their crosstown rivals. So it's just no advantage at all. Stay away from it. Leave your money in your wallet and put it on the next one, Pez, because I reckon we both are going to be leaning towards or even locking in the next one. We have the Richmond Football Club. Their season win total last year was, and I have it right here, Pez, 13 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw. They finished 7th. They got into the finals famously after Carlton absolutely balls it up. They finished 7th. 121.6 was the percentage. Their over win total for this year, 13.5, $1.75 is the over. Under 13.5, $1.99. Talk about the acquisitions because they got better.
Oh, Richmond got better. So GWS got worse. Richmond is a team that did get better. They got Hopper and they got Taranto. So both of them come in, fit into that midfield beautifully. You look around, they haven't lost too much. Shane Edwards was probably an important player, and Kane Lambert probably a couple of years ago was really important in their best 22. But they've gained plenty and lost little. Whatever they have lost, they've lost the fringe sort of players. And Shane Edwards could have been an X factor, but they've got other players that can do that. Now, Richmond, you've got Jack Rewalt still up forward. You've got Tom Lynch up there. This team is my pick for a bounce back sort of team. I think this is a top 4 team. So I'm interested to see the top 4 odds as well, Sauce. But this one is an absolute lock for me. I'm going to lock in the over wins, even though it's a little less priced at $1.75. But the Richmond Footy Club, they're going to be exciting to watch. Their midfield, the way they move the footy, and a couple of their players are forward. Shea Bolton is one of the best players to watch in the AFL. And now you can put him in the midfield if you want. You can put him up forward. You can put him anywhere. And the rotations that they've got in there, if Prestia can stay on the park, if Tom Lynch can stay healthy, they're going to have a really good shake, not only at top 4, but at a premiership.
Yeah, you talked about the top 4 there, Pez, 225, which is a pretty good odds. We spoke last week about Brisbane and the value they had there. They've already come in completely. They're at $2 now, so that where market changes there, Pez. Totally agree with everything you're saying. Richmond, they got better. They've still got a polarising forward. Their back line's good, and that midfield with the inclusion of Hopper and Taranto allows Dusty Martin to play forward up a lot more. I think the bookies have this wrong, Pez. I'm totally with you. 13.5 is way too low. I've got them probably winning, and I've been really conservative, 17 wins. And I've been very conservative with that. They've got the 9th easiest fixture by my metrics. They play Melbourne twice, Port Adelaide twice, St Kilda twice, Sydney twice, West Coast twice, and the Doggies. And they have such an advantage because those Melbourne teams that are up the top, they play them at the G. So yes, it's an away game, but there's a home game for that. They get an absolute bonus that they play one of the Sydney games. They're going to play one Sydney game in Victoria, and the other Sydney game is in Adelaide.
Yep.
So their fixture screams wins. They are a very good chance for top 4, and I'm definitely locking in the over.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love it. So we both agree there. Their premiership players that they've got on the park, Damien Hardwick in charge. You just only injury is the only thing that you see stopping that, and it has to be pretty major injuries and multiple of them.
Yeah, exactly right. And there's back them to finish top 4, back them at the over, and they're going to get better. They've opened that premiership window ajar a little bit longer, and it's going to align. You know that Jack Rewalt went around one more year, Cochin went around one more year. They believe in this group. There's one more year. The last dance is going to be thrown around heaps. Fairy tale finish for the Tigers, and some of those people are, but hopefully not as a Geelong supporter.
Yeah, I was going to say the fairy tale as well. Joel Selwood just did it, so can a couple of other Richmond boys do it?
Speaking of fairy tale, Pez, you will definitely be looking at a fairy tale for St Kilda's season next year. They had, do you know what they had last year? They had a season. They literally were middle of the pack. 11 wins, 11 losses. Their percentage was 99%. They finished 10th. So the bookies this year, everyone is looking at them going, I don't really know what this team is. And they're over under 10.5. $1.99 for the over, $1.76 for the under. I'm really interested to hear about your thoughts, Pez, because Ross Lyon has been brought in and to coach this team, and the word is that they needed to improve their offense, so they went and got Ross Lyon. So great move.
Yeah, well, you'd hope as a third-time head coach that he's going to be able to, do something a little bit different. But I'm not mad at the coaching change, and I'm not really mad with some of the delistings or retirements, or the forced retirements as well, because some players were actually getting regular games who weren't AFL standard for the Saints. They haven't bought a lot in. They've bought a lot of rookies and a couple of things. They bought Zane Cordy in as a free agent, who I never rated highly at the Bulldogs anyway. I think one of our biggest losses, one of St Kilda's biggest losses, will be Paddy Ryder. And I know he wasn't fit every single game last year, but in the past 2 seasons when he's been fit, well with Rowan Marshall, that 1-2 punch, the Saints have looked way better than they have. So I think they're going to miss him a little bit, and they're very hard to read. Max King has a 3-month injury that he's going to be sitting on the sidelines. There's a couple of other injury worries at St Kilda at the start of the season, so you're definitely not looking under, and I know a lot of people would be locking in the under 10.5 wins. I'm not leaning either way. It's the club I go for. I'm not going to cheer against them for a whole season and lock in a future bet like that. So I'm definitely leaving this one alone. But intrigued to see what you say.
What do you think the value is with the over or the under? Like, obviously you're going to leave it as a better, but like, is there value there? Because I can't get a read on this team. They didn't really do anything in terms of their moves. Their draft pick at number 10, Mateus Philippou, he looks pretty good. He looked pretty impressive on the weekend, but he was playing Essendon. Is he going to get a regular game? Ross Lyon keeps talking about this fast ball movement they're going to be using. I mean, Fremantle took a little bit of time to get moving when he took over there, but they definitely had a better team. I just don't see... I can't get a read on this team. I really can't.
Yeah, and St Kilda's always been the team where you've got a lot of unknown players. So the players that aren't at the front, like Jack Steele's trying to get Brownlow votes, a lot of other fans don't really know of players. Like Cam Wilkie's a good example. He stepped up to vice captain. He's probably one of the most solid St Kilda players and one of the most solid defenders in the league. And 80% of AFL fans might not even know who it is. So that's the kind of club we're at with St Kilda. I can't do anything. If you have no idea and you can't get a read source, there's zero value. There's no value either way, because the better value is keep your money in your pocket and leave it alone.
Yeah, I looked at St Kilda to make the 8 at 375, and I could talk myself into that, but they need to get 5 wins basically over where I have them. Roughly, I think they'd be sitting about 8 wins, and they need to get, probably, we talked about it last week, 13 wins.
It's very hard for them because they've got to be consistent as well. They might, upset a couple of teams, but to do that consistently over a month of footy, over 5 weeks of footy, they just haven't seemed to do it over the past few years. So something's got to change, and I've got to see something change before I think about anything like that.
Their fixture is kind of favourable. They play Hawthorn twice and North Melbourne twice, so there's 4 wins.
You hope.
You say that they play Essendon, there's a 5th win. You say they play DWS, 6 wins. West Coast, 7. So you could almost talk yourself into it. But again, when you're unsure, you don't have to bet for the sake of it. You're leaving it. I was looking for value. I'm trying to find some value in it. There's no value. Leave this one. Leave it alone, basically. If you're not sure, just leave it.
Yeah, we're happy with that.
All right, let's look at the next team, the runners-up in the premiership, and I haven't seen that bad a performance since Meatloaf at the grand final in 2011 that grand final. I'm talking about the Sydney Swans, of course, and you can hear a little bit of up in my step because it was a bit of a bath that Geelong put on. But we're here to talk about Sydney. 16 wins, 6 losses, a percentage of 127.9, third in the AFL end of regular season, runners up in the grand final. Had a great finals run. They really peaked at the right time after a disappointing sort of middle spot where we thought that they might drop out of the 8. And them finishing top 4 was so pivotal in them actually progressing because they got a home final. They were able to, outlast Collingwood in that prelim. The bookies have them at 13.5, $1.91 for the over, $1.82 for the under. Really interested to hear how they respond. Do they respond like their Sydney counterpart and have a disappointing fall from grace like GWS did after getting thumped by Richmond? Or do they have a bounce back year like Geelong and Hawthorns of the past?
Isn't it funny just looking at the line, 13.5 for a team that made the grand final. Because if you make the grand final and you underperform like that, you think back to 2019, GWS got absolutely hammered. And what happened to them? They started going into free fall. People, have superstitions about premiership hangovers and things like that. Josh Kennedy, he had his final chance, final opportunity. He's now retired. They haven't got much in, but they have got Aaron Francis in, who was, I think, a 5th or 6th pick over at Essendon. And I wouldn't usually say, I'm expecting him to do big things, but it's because of the club he's gone to, Sauce. Remember Ted Richards when he left Essendon? Mm-hmm. Wasn't much. He turned into a, 7-8 year defender for Sydney, and he was a very important part of their really strong side. So Aaron Francis, he's got a lifeline. He gets to go to Sydney out of the limelight, gets to see if he can be a defender up there and see if John Longmire with his new contract can turn him around. Not enough in it for me. With the premiership hangover in the clouds there's no value in it. I think the bookies have just gone, you know what, we'll try and tempt a few people with the 13.5, and I think they think that they're going into free fall mode and maybe, bottom half of the 8 or even missing.
This is a really, really interesting one. I totally agree what you said there. The bookies have put a number very low because they're going to tempt people to say, well, they're the runners up last year. This is an easy progression for them. They're young. They had their first experience for finals. Realistically, their growth is going to be there, but it's not going to be consistent. They had a great run last year, a couple of close games. Their fixture sucks. It absolutely sucks, Pez. It is Fremantle twice, Geelong twice, Melbourne twice, Richmond twice, GWS twice, and Gold Coast. And it just sucks for them. And they're a young team. They're going to be travelling. There's going to be a lot of expectation for them as well, which also makes it really tough. So I originally looked at this and went, you little ripper. And then I went into the metrics and I thought, there is no way. I mean, Errol Goulding is going to carry this team a little bit. He was amazing on the weekend with the preseason. He had, I think, 45 and 3 goals. He ain't doing that every week. And they're going to rely heavily on their forward line to kick goals. And last year, a big percentage of that was Buddy Franklin. There's no chance he's playing every single game. And when you've got a bloke who's, did a 1-year extension, yes, he's the best goal kicker in the AFL history, you can't be relying on him to be your majority stakeholder in goals. So I'm leaving this one, Pez, and I would warn people not to get tempted by the bookies. Do your research, look at their fixture. Don't just look at last year. You can't just sit there and go, oh, they did this last year, so they have to do that again. Look at the lists, look at the improvement, look at the expectation, the fixture, again, who's playing well. Do your homework.
And if you're unsure, leave it alone. How's this? I saw this wasn't up last week, but on Sportsbet, they've got AFL futures, bring your own bets.
Yep.
So people have been going in there, and I love looking at the really high ones. So it's the $21+ odd one, Lance Franklin, to kick exactly 23 goals this season. He's paying $31.
That's because he's his number, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're going to pick a player to kick exactly some goals. So you want him to kick that amount of goals, and then you want him to get injured. Or you want him to have a really poor season, and in the final round you want him to miss the finals and need him to kick 2 goals to get that bet up. That's a really silly, exotic bet that, a lot of people seem to do for fun.
I'd like to see more of if you can jump on to Betfair, a really good bet. You talked about them to make the 8. I think they make the 8. Them to miss the 4, to lay that at $3.05. So a lay bet, you might want to explain this after this because you do it much better than I do, is good value. So if you lay them to miss the 4, or find a bookie that's doing Sydney to miss the 8, you get about $3, Pez, and I think that's better value when you look at their fixture. Miss the 4.
So on the lay side on Betfair, it says, what's the number?
$3.05.
$3.05. So that's if you're clicking on that and you want to lay it, you're actually giving someone else the odds for them to actually make it. So you're giving someone $3.05 odds for them to make the top 4. Mm-hmm. So you're having the opposite odds of that. So you've got to put your liability out there and do things. Now, a lot of people, even a lot of punters, find Betfair really, really complicated with the lay and the back feature. So if you are confused about it, don't just see the price and go all over it, because lay is you're saying that something is not going to happen and you're actually the one giving the price out. So just be a little bit careful if you're unsure.
Yeah, look for. I looked through Sportsbet trying to find the miss the 4 and miss the 8. They don't have it up anymore because it's getting too close to the season. But there was a lot of value there for memory. But I'm not going to quote numbers. There was a lot of value there. All right, speaking of a lot of value, now do I go Western Bulldogs or West Coast? I can never work this out because the West and the West. So I'm going to go with the Western Bulldogs to start things off with. We're going to finish with the Eagles because I think that's where they're going to finish about last. So the Western Bulldogs for season 2022, they had 12 wins, 10 losses. They scraped into the 8. Everyone forgets that they scraped into the 8. 108.9. They lost to Fremantle in the second elimination final. The bookies have them at 12.5 wins, $1.91 for the over, $1.82 for the under.
The doggies, the doggies every single year. Rory Lobb comes in, traded from Fremantle, so hopefully, he'll be a good thing. And Liam Jones, he's come back.
Yeah, well, he doesn't need to be vaccinated anymore.
Doesn't need to be vaccinated, so he
didn't have to get the jab.
And he's chosen the Bulldogs, or they've chosen him, or both ways, because he was at Carlton.
That's such a good pickup for the Dogs. Such a good pickup.
Just a defender that he's going to try and get a fist in there and go from there. Now, they have lost Lockie Hunter and they have lost Josh Dunkley. And I think Josh Dunkley was a really good performer for them last year. His ability to overhead mark as at midfielder, he's gone up to the Lions. So he'll be a bit of a hole for the Bulldogs. I think they're that mid-table sort of side. And I just have no idea how many wins they're gonna get. They're a side that can go on a bit of a run, and it can be a good run, or it can be a really poor run, and they can string a couple of losses together, and then it ruins your bet. So I'm definitely just leaving this one. I'm happy with the amount of futures bets I've got at the moment for the season, and there's no need to force anything.
I really like this one. I think that the addition through subtraction is perfect here. One of the things that we spoke about heaps last year is that they had too many players in that midfield that just took up possessions and meaningful minutes in that midfield when they've got absolute superstars that should be playing in there. On the weekend, you saw Liberatore and Bontempelli go into that midfield a lot more and a lot more consistently. They both had over 30 possessions. They both had over 2 goals. And when they're able to play those regular roles, and Josh Dunkley, yes, he's a superstar in terms of getting the pill, but in terms of impact, it doesn't always make the right stuff when you're going around in circles handballing. Lockie Hunter, much the same. So I think that it's actually a decent sort of bet if going for the over, Pez. And you'll be surprised at this, but I'm going to leave it. All right? Oh. So I'm going to leave it. But the Western Bulldogs, mainly because of their fixture, a little bit of an unknown. I think that they sneak into the 8, probably about maybe 6. But they have Fremantle twice, Geelong twice, Port Adelaide twice, Richmond twice, GWS and Gold Coast. Now, I think that they're going to be good, but I'm not going to put a bet down just on my thoughts in terms of without actually seeing a product. So I need to see a bit of a sample size of what this midfield looks like, because I still have questions over their defence. And that run and gun football, I need to see it in action with this list. So I don't believe in Beveridge as a coach, because they've had this same list that's taken them to a premiership, that's also missed the 8, that's also missed the top 4.
Final.
I don't believe in the coaching staff, and I need to see what sort of game plan they are playing before I back my money into it. But I do like the over once I see what they can do. And I know that sounds silly, Pez, but I think that the bookies have it low, and if it all works and what I think is going to happen, then it's great value. But if the coaching staff don't implement and use what they've got in their actual midfield and their forwards, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
New source 2023, liking a little bit of what the Bulldogs are.
I don't like the Bulldogs. Let's be clear about that.
I didn't say that. I said liking a little bit of what the Bulldogs are showing.
I think that they have a lot of potential, but you can't back on potential, Pez. I mean, that sounds silly, but again, with a future bet, you really need to look for value. There could be value, but there's too many unknowns of what they're going to play. I know it sounds silly, but
I know you say upwards of 6 or higher or around there. I don't think so for the Bulldogs at the moment, but I'm not putting my money anywhere either. So what does that say?
That says that you're not keen on them at all. And speaking of not keen, there are a lot of people last year that were surprised that the West Coast Eagles dropped off so significantly. But Pez, you and I both said that they were going to finish bottom 4, and they did. They were really disappointing. They had 2 wins last year, 20 losses. They finished 17th with a percentage of 59.8. And this is one of the most craziest lines, I think, in this whole thing. They had 2 wins last year. The over-under, for not much of a list change, they're in absolute limbo whether they're going to be rebuild. They've got a couple of players in their contracts that have 1 or 2 years left, like Shannon Hearn and a couple of other players that retired in Kennedy. The over-under has gone up to 8.5 from 2 last year, $1.87. This one baffles me, Pez.
Yeah. This one is intriguing because of round 1, I think, with North being the favourites, because if West Coast can steal that, is it still going to be hard for them to get 9 wins because the line is 8.5? You mentioned Josh Kennedy, who retired, who has been a staple for them up forward for many years. They've got rookies everywhere, draft picks, and Jaden Hunt from Melbourne as a free agent. But the West Coast Eagles, usually their advantage is playing over there, but I don't think any club would mind playing against them over there. Before I lock anything in, I've got it nearly there, Sauce. I just want to hear your little analysis of their fixture and what you're locking in over there.
I mean, their fixture, again, what you mentioned is really pivotal, is that previously West Coast, they get 11 games there. It's an automatic win. But when you're sitting last and second last and down that bottom, when the teams are travelling over there, they're actually penciling in a win. So they're going to bring their A game. They're going to really prepare, and there's a lot more expectation on that travelling team to put in their homework and compete. And there's no excuse now of, they're a middle-of-the-range run team or they're a top 8 side. That's a penciled-in loss. That now in everyone's fixture is a penciled-in win. So I don't think you can rely on 11 wins just there. The teams that they play twice, they play Adelaide twice, Carlton twice, Essendon twice, Fremantle twice, North Melbourne twice, Richmond twice. So very favourable. I've got Carlton, Fremantle and Richmond, those top tier teams. Adelaide realistically is just on the cusp of being that middle 6. And they probably will split Essendon. They probably split North Melbourne. So there's 2 wins. Where do the other 7 wins come from? I am locking this in at the under, Pez. 8.5 is way too high from a team that is in the middle of a rebuild but haven't fully committed to the rebuild. So they're not getting no high draft picks in. They've still got an aging list. If they all play, Elliot Yeo, if he gets some more time into the midfield and he's able to stay healthy, they may squin what? He's probably worth 2 wins? So now we're up to 6 wins. They're still searching for another 3 wins. To me, this is a clear under.
Yeah, I think the line should be somewhere around 6.5. So if you think it's going to be 2 wins less, that's a definite lock. So we'll both lock that one in. West Coast under 8.5 wins for season 2023 and watch their future demise.
Demise, I like that. And good word to sort of finish on. Well, that was the second half of the season. Did we end up locking in anything huge there, Pez? I think I locked in Richmond as the over. I locked in West Coast as the under. I got really, really, really close in locking in the Bulldogs, and then I rambled a little bit.
How boring is that? Another podcast, and we've both locked in the 2 same bets, but that shows you that there is some value in the futures there. So now I've got 5 bets. So Brisbane over 14.5 wins this year with Sportsbet. It was $1.80. I don't know what it is now. Brisbane top 4. We spoke about that before. I locked it in at $2.25 on Sportsbet. Essendon under 10.5 wins. I locked in last week at $1.76. And the Richmond over 13.5 tonight, and West Coast under 8.5. So I've locked in those 5 bets. Sauce, you've also got 5 bets, and if you don't have it up, I can go through it for you.
We've got the assistant.
You've got Brisbane over 14.5 as well. Brisbane top 4 finish as well, so $2.25 on Sportsbet. You've gone GWS under 8.5 wins, so you really liked that last week at $1.91. You've also gone Richmond over 13.5 wins, and then West Coast, as we just said, then under 8.5. So we've both locked in 5 bets, 5 units at stake already in the futures, and that's there on our nice little Google Doc spreadsheet. So if you go to @BehindTheBound on Twitter, you can actually click on the link on the website, which is on our profile, and it will actually take you to a little spreadsheet where it's got all our links and it's got all our bets. So at the moment, it'll take you to the AFL futures, but come round 1, it'll take you to round 1, and there'll be those little tabs there throughout the round. We'll keep a track of absolutely anything and everything. That's what we do here at Behind the Boundary Sauce. 5 years of absolute winning and beating the bookies, and we want to continue to do that in 2023.
Yep. To find it on our Twitter page, you just scroll down past our last season's wins. You at 77.1 and me at 43.75. A total of over 100%. Over 100 units won. You go past our 10K challenge, which I'm super excited for that. We're going to be doing that. Tell everyone what we're doing with the 10K challenge.
Yeah, the 10K challenge.
Ladder challenge. Sorry, I didn't even give its proper name.
$10,000 ladder challenge. So we're going to attempt to win $10,000 from $10 in 10 rounds. It'll probably take 11 rounds after round 1. So 10 bets, and we'll get from $10 up to 10,000. So if we win like we plan to, then that 10,000 will be coming home. So if you want to follow along, feel free to do that. And the other option is when you look at our ladder challenge, have a look at what you do like. add those legs in, and then maybe substitute some legs if you don't like them. But yeah, everyone gets to make their own choice, and that's the best thing about punting.
Yeah, make sure you follow along on all our socials, our Facebook, our Instagram. We're now on TikTok, as we mentioned earlier, so try and look past Pez's funky little dance moves and find Behind the Boundary, and you can see some of the clips of how we run the show, how we can look at the some of the bets there.
And one of the paintings, which is behind your head sauce, got a little bit of love on Twitter, said it looked like a tooth cavity.
Yeah, that's how good our content is. The people are commenting about the paintings in the background. So, hopefully that punt must have been when we was one of our leaves that they were looking at.
I don't even know what a tooth cavity looks like, but there you go.
It looks like that.
Yep. Looks pretty shit, doesn't it? That'd be painful.
It would be very painful. Make sure you jump on, if you haven't already, to our podcast providers in Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you listen to. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review and drop a comment in there. Talk about what you like about the show, what we need to improve. Maybe talk about some of the bets that you'll have. But that's how you can let other AFL punters find us. And make sure you join our loser comp too, Pez.
Yep, loser comps there, links there, all there at Behind the Bound, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Just one more week. Very, very exciting. I've been Pez. Peace out.
I'm still Sauce. We'll catch up next time for round 1. Let's go.